This is possibly the smallest servo drop mechanism on an INAV drone. Just look at it, delivering a singular candy. Recently, a lot of nations around the globe changed their drone laws, many of them now seeing 250-gram maximum takeoff weight as the max you are allowed to use without having to register the drone. That led to the sub-250 class becoming way more popular. So I got curious and wanted to see if a sub-250-gram autonomous delivery drone would be viable. I started out with a TBS Pod Racer 4-inch frames. The nice thing about that one is, due to being open source, you can make your own replacement parts if the need for it in the future should arrive. Also, the frame is already very light. In this project, an absolute must-have. I choose Beta FPV 1404 motors with 3800 kV. They work very well, paired with a 3S Li-ion battery. For the flight controller, I choose an all-in-one board with a barometer already integrated. One of the main reasons to get that all-in-one flight controller board for me was that it had an existing INAV firmware target. I wanted to avoid recompiling INAV, but ended up having to do it anyway, since the original INAV target for the board didn't include any defined servo outputs. So with my freshly custom-built INAV firmware, I was finally able to add a servo to this project. And what a cute servo it is. It only weighs 1.5 gram, and it's not very powerful, but exactly the right thing for what we want to build. So after designing a 3D printed holder and stand to protect the servo, let's take a look. Here you can see the gears transferring the torque from the motor to spindle. Along the spindle, there slides our actuator in a linear fashion, thereby the name linear servo. The servo is mapped to a switch on the radio, but since this is INAV, we can also set up logic functions to activate the servo on a given GPS waypoint. On the point of GPS, you may notice that the GPS receiver on this drone is mounted right on the battery. Normally, you would try to get a distance between the battery and the GPS, but this GPS receiver does not include a compass. Without a compass, the GPS module isn't affected by the electromagnetic interference of the metal case of 18650 battery cells. Not having a compass on board isn't much of a problem unless you are planning to do prolonged position holds. In moving flight, INAV now will get its compass direction from the GPS track and sensor fuse it with inertial guidance from the gyroscopes to hold direction for short position holds. But I digress. Back to the candy dropper. As you can see, it has a very small ELRS receiver mounted here. And if you observed well, you will see it also doesn't have a camera on board. So this copter isn't made for flying long range then? Only line of sight? Not quite. This is where INAV comes in. INAV allows us to program waypoints that the drone will then fly to on its own. There is only one restriction. If we lose connection, the drone will go into return to home mode. There used to be a way in INAV to turn that off. The option was called Mission Failsafe. Sadly, it recently got removed from the INAV project, presumably to avoid that hobbyists do stupid stuff with INAV. But shh! Let me tell you a secret. If you go to your terminal and then you type in
Well, there has been a speaker change, but you already hear, so listen up. This drone can drop candy, or it could deliver small and light emergency medication like EPI pens and narcolepsone. With a given flight time of 40 min, this drone has a potential delivery range of up to 12 to 15 kilometers or 30 kilometers one way. Numbers with medical payload will be less, but a 10-kilometer delivery range still seems realistic. Due to being below 250 grams, this vehicle basically poses almost no threat to its environment in case of a malfunction. It is also very cheap to build. I could see a future where urban hospitals have a fleet of dozens of these to fly out medication in emergencies. Not having any sensors beside GPS, this drone is quite blind to its surroundings. Not really a problem if the drone is attritable. In many cases, the medication transported by the drone may be worth way more than the drone itself. This concludes this broadcast. If you have any ideas what to deliver with this drone, please let me know in the comments.